Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hi guys, my name is Stephan from Germany, living in China for the last 15 years. And I'm in China doing my own business. We're doing quality control for companies who are buying products from China. And this is my main business, yes.
So I was curious about your background. How did you get into this business?
So for me, maybe it's also interesting to know how I ended up in China. So when I was 17, I was actually living in the States. I lived in Oregon, and that whole experience of living abroad was super, super interesting. And when I returned to Germany, I was like, hey, Germany is a cool place. The US is a cool place. But, I want to explore something completely new and different. And so when I choose my college in Germany, we had a really cool exchange program. So this basically was one semester in university and basically 6 months doing some internship in China. And during this internship, I basically ended up in Shenzhen in South China doing quality control inspections, factory audits. And then for some reason, I really enjoyed to be in China. I quickly went back to Germany, finished my college, got on the next plane after graduation and went back to China and started my first job in a bigger company. Worked there for a year. Then I started working for a different company, like a German company in China, for 5-6 years. And then I said, hey, you know what? You learned enough. I had a good experience in those companies. Very thankful for all and everyone who I met there. But for me, it was way enough to start my own thing and improve things. And then basically the last 5 years, I have my own company, started as a one-man show. And now we are more or less 20 people, keep on growing. And that's the journey, how I ended up over here.
And I guess in Shenzhen, for our audience, is there a large expat community? What does that look like, for somebody who moved there from Germany and who lived in the US as well?
So I would say 14 years or 15 years ago, there was much, much more expats living there. I think during COVID, a lot of them exited. I think especially a lot of friends from the US went back home, and now the expat bubble is not as crazy and not as many as before. It's slowly recovering. And also compared to maybe Beijing, Shanghai or Guangzhou, where you have much, much larger audiences, Shenzhen is still not as big for expats. But we have a very cool, solid crew of very cool entrepreneurs over here, which is also one of the reasons why in a very good environment, a lot of people are over here doing manufacturing, do product development. And I mean, Shenzhen and Guangdong, the whole south, you have so good access to factories, and there's a lot of cool people down here who make things happening. So that's super dope to live here and meet a lot of cool people who have the same goals, same mindset, and surround yourself with the right people, and you end up having a big growth by yourself as well.
Sure. And then I guess in terms of your business, I'm curious, you can just tell our audience what exactly you do and kind of how you got that idea.
Yeah, so basically our core business is that everyone who's somehow buying products in China, if it's for your small FBA shop, for retail, or if you're a luxury brand, most of the things, they somehow come from China, right? So, and since the last 20-30 years, there was always some problems, people ordered something and then the quality was not right. Maybe the factories, they exchanged some parts, choose lower quality parts. And so there was always, I would say, some trust issues with foreign buyers and Chinese factories. And in order to avoid to have defects, high return rates, or end up with completely different products that you ordered, people use our services to send our team or our inspectors to the factory to really ensure that the products that have been ordered have the right quality, the right quantity, and follow exactly the specifications as the customer ordered. So we do for this, we send our people to the factory, we create checklists based on the product specifications. And then there's certain standards that we have to follow. And based on this, the customer gets a report. We also help factories to compare or to vet different factories. And at the end, the people, they can rest well and sleep good if they know that the products that they bought for 100K or for we have customers who order for 20K to some shipments who have $600,000 worth value. And if you it doesn't matter if you order small amounts or big amounts, people, they want to have someone they can trust. And this is also why they end up working with a foreigner who's based over here, who knows everything about China, or at least say a lot of things about China, has good experience. And I think this is a really good thing for people who buy products products in China.
So in terms of like the quality check, so let's just say if I place an order for the first time, obviously that makes sense. But if I'm going to go back and reorder, are you guys going back and checking every single new batch? What does that process look like in terms of cadence of like how often you're actually going and checking these products?
Yeah, you have to see like this for all of our customers. They really rely on high quality products without problems. So normally all of them, they order for every shipment or for every PO that they place or like every container they send us to the factory, because like think about like you have a winning product, you're killing it on Shopify or on FBA or like with your retail customers. And then, like because you want to save like $300 for a shipment that is worth 100,000 in retail value, no one want to risk this, and of course people always say, oh yes, we work with our suppliers for such long time. They do such a great job. There's every factory that at some point they maybe face some problems. They have to save cost. They have to like increase their margins, or maybe, like even material costs increase, and they have to find some way to save some money. And there's something is called quality fate. Like the first few orders, everything goes smooth. And then the factory thinks, okay, since everything went well, they will not find out. And so I suggest to always do inspections and follow with the right quality and don't compromise on that.
So I guess like what do you kind of use as like a reference? Let's just say if I have shoes, right, that I create, what do you use like as like a reference or like a baseline of like, hey, like this shouldn't be at this standard and meet this quality? Like what does that process look like for you?
So, of course, I always suggest our customers, if they really have a high quality product, of course, everything must be communicated with the factory, like, hey, we want to have a high quality product. We sell for high prices, and that also the factory knows what's going on. I think clear communication and expectations, the first point, it must be agreed on both sides. And of course, if you have a very cheap product, you cannot really expect to have the top notch quality and everything perfect, because at the end, for certain products, let's say for shoes, there's also still a lot of hand labor or like labor involved. It's not optimized. And yeah, of course, we always tell our customers, like to create some criteria, or we can work out together some criteria. What is counted as critical defects? What is major defects? What kind of defects are leading to returns, where customers have not only the damaged product that they get back, they also have shipping costs, they have human labor costs for to solve the customer issues. And normally how we work, we are mostly a little bit more critical, and we basically give all of the defects and everything what we find, even if it's above the accepted limit of defects, we give them every detail, and they can, at the end, they can decide, hey, you know what? There's some little thread, some uncut trimmed little thread, like this is acceptable. But if you have some dirt, if you have glue, if you have, like skipped stitching or like something that is like really obvious damage to the product, that is not acceptable. And then normally we work with the customer and also with the factory together to say, hey, you know what can we improve? Should we do maybe next time the inspection a little bit earlier in a different production stage, like when 20% are produced, to find problems earlier, and then basically work with both sides. Because basically what we want, that all three parties that are involved, the customer, the factory, and us, that everyone is winning, that the customer is getting a good product, that the factory have not too high like products that they have to sort out or too much trouble. If everyone, if return rates can be lower, if defect rates can be lower, everyone is winning. And this is basically also at the end our goal, what we want to reach, that everyone is winning, having better products, and everyone is happy. This is what we strive for.
Makes sense. And obviously China is a big country. So do you have people that travel all around the country, or do you only cover certain parts of the country? What does that look like in terms of like geographic regions?
Yeah, China is huge. We have our own team in most common manufacturing areas in China. So there's I would say 2 or 3 really clusters of where a lot of things going on. And besides those clusters, of course, there's also different cities, different areas, but we can mostly cover all of them. I would say 95%. And for those areas that we are really cannot go, either we ask the customer to pay some travel costs and send our team. So yeah, that's normally how we do it. And I mean, yeah. China has such a good high speed train network, and flights, everything is super easy to go. So it's normally not a big problem.
That's awesome. I'm curious more about your background. So were you working in this industry before? How did you kind of come up with the idea to go and start this company?
Yeah, I mean, I was working in this industry for 8-9 years in let's say in a corporate environment. And I mean, I learned a lot of things there, but I just saw that there's a lot of things are left behind, or those companies, they forgot about a lot of things. And I just thought I can do it much, much better. And, actually 70 or 80% of our customers are all from Germany, Austria, Switzerland. The other ones are from the US or North America. But, one thing that was completely overseen is that, Germans used to be world famous for German quality, right? So what could be better to have a German guy who's ensuring quality in China, right? So that's a little bit the pitch that I was thinking, what could separate us from the rest. And we are open for all of the customers worldwide. And we are very happy to work with guys from the US or Canada or anywhere else in the world, like more than happy. We trying to have our niche that a lot of people who come from Germany, Austria, Switzerland, that they just love to communicate in their mother language. And we have, of course, our team, we speak English, we speak Chinese, we speak Cantonese, but actually also the majority of them speaks German. So like to have this multiple languages of like access to those different languages, and especially German is for a lot of customers like a no-brainer to say, hey, we want to work with you guys. You have a German speaking team or like a proper English speaking team as well. You have a foreigner on site, and normally I'm in factories like 2 or 3 days a week. Like even today I was in a factory for one of our customers from the UK, and that is just like something that really people highly appreciate, to have someone on the ground who knows what's going on, who's able to go within 1 hour to your factory, take a look what's happening there, and have, like feedback within like on WhatsApp or like by messages and say, hey, this is what's going on. You can send a quick video, and this is so much less complicated compared to those big companies who don't really offer those services. And if you want to have a hands-on person over here, then we are the right company for a lot of customers who have high expectations in their products.
So obviously, like in China, there's manufacturing for lots of different types of products. So are there certain types of products that you guys focus more on recently, like more so like apparel? I've seen gummies, other types of products. Like, what do you guys kind of typically see in terms of breakdown, those types of products that you focus on?
So we do a lot of consumer products, consumer electronics, kitchen appliances. And I would say it always sounds very bad to say that we can almost do everything. But let's say in the product world, we separate between hardline products, which could be, like consumer electronics, bigger physical products, and softline, which is normally like textile or garment products. And as I mentioned earlier, now in China, we have different production clusters. So certain areas are known for textile products or fabrics or garments. And normally the people in those areas or the inspectors in those areas, they're well experienced with 10-year history of working with t-shirts, clothing, everything, apparel, whatever, And then like as an example in Shenzhen or Dongguan, which is super well known for electronics or consumer electronics, our team over here, they are very focused on consumer electronics. Like they know everything about the standards, about safety, certain functions that must be tested. And basically with that kind of mindset or like with that kind of clusters, we can basically cover almost everything. And I mean, the only thing we don't really do is like food. That's something we haven't really done or keep our hands off. But there's always like some new stuff coming up that is interesting. I think lately a lot of supplements came up that like, we had someone who asked us, can you check creatine gummy bears or something? So that's something that we actually checked last month. And that's super interesting. But also you have to say, like for like, chemical products or food,